Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Tirayat Nastapkaya Shavadrishu Nidyam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Tamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistuti. Can you turn the computer, please? Up a little the screen. Yeah, that's good. Thank you. I'll claim old age and sit in the chair. That's okay with you? Yes. So we're reading from the 4th canto, chapter 27, text number 15. I wasn't really prepared for this. I haven't read the verse. I don't have my glasses, so it's going to be difficult. I may mess up the Sanskrit and the English altogether. Che te chandabe ganu chara puranjana puram yada artum adevire tatra pratyashadat prajavaram. Synonyms. Te, all of them, Chandavega, of Chandavega, Anuchara, followers, Puranjana, of King Puranjana, Puran, city, Yada, when, Artum, to plunder, Adevi, began, Tatra, there, Pratyashedat, defended, Prajavara, the big serpent. Translation of permission. Prabhupada. When King Gandharva Chandavega and his followers began to plunder the city of Puranjana, a snake with 5 hooves began to defend the city. When one is sleeping in a purpur, the life air remains active in different dreams. The 5 hooves of the snake indicate that the life air is surrounded by 5 kinds of air, known as prana, apana, vyana, udana, and samana. When the body is inactive, the prana, or life air, is active. After the age of 50, one can actively work for sense gratification. But after the 50th year, one's energy decreases, although one can with great strength work for 2 or 3 more years, perhaps after the 55th year. Thus, the 55th year is generally taken by government regulations as the final year for retirement. The energy, which is fatigued after 50 years, is figuratively described herein as a serpent with 5 hooves. The verse again, when King Gandharva Chandavega and his followers began to plunder the city of Puranjana, a snake with 5 hooves began to defend the city. Om Agyan Timidam Dasyana Gyanandana Shavakaya Chaksurumilitam Jeva Tasmat Shri Gurave Kamkaroti Vajnam Gurna Gayate Kim Yatripadam Vande Shri Guru Paramananda Maravam Shri Chaitanyam Ishvaram Vanchakalpatarviyas Jagrika Sindhuveva Jagatikanam Pavanivyo Vaishnavyo Namo. So I apologize for the change up. It wasn't my intention to be sitting here. I was quite ready to listen to class, which is a lot more exciting sometimes than giving a class, especially if you didn't prepare to study. So we'll continue with this allegory. Not that many allegories in the Bhagavatam. There are many parables, there are analogies, there's all sorts of things. This is a very, very unique allegory of Puranjana, a king who didn't exist, actually. Is an imaginary person. The king is Prachinavarishad, and because of the position that Prachinavarishad occupies as a king, and as you probably know, people are famous or they are in a position of power, they have a little bit of ego problem. They think that themselves better than they are. So it's very difficult to address them. So in this case when Narada Muni, thank you, when Narada Muni wanted to tell them, wanted to reveal some of the truth of his existence and the source of everyone, etc., etc., he couldn't say, "Listen, buddy, this is cool." He actually had to say, "Oh, let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, there was a king. Oh, king, you get it? It's about you, but I can't say it's about you, so I will refer to someone else." So he tells the story of King Purandana, the city of 9 gates, and the 500 serpents, etc., etc. But this Purandana represents the living entity, and the living entity is all of us. We are actually, however enlightened we think we are just tossed into this material world without GPS. Basically, we are completely disoriented. We don't know what's north, south. We don't know where we came from, where we're supposed to go. It will be equivalent to you going to sleep in your bed, wherever you live, and waking up at a tennis court, and you have a racket in your hand, and you're dressed with tennis shorts and a shirt, and you have a ball on the other hand, and there are people watching, there's another guy on the other side, and what do? Well, most people will get up and serve, of course, because it's your turn, right? But this is wrong, because here, how did this happen? How did I end up in a tennis court? I was sleeping in my bed last night, and right now I just wake up, and there are people expecting me to do this. They're cheering me on too. It's ridiculous. You should put the racket and ball down and try to figure out how did I get here. So this is the plight of a living entity, that we are all of a sudden in a material body, in the material world. How did that happen? And it's not natural, because there are a lot of things that they don't feel right. It doesn't feel right to get old. It doesn't feel right to get sick. It doesn't feel right to die. It's not natural, because we are souls. We are not bodies. The body never had life. Even a non-philosophical widow in the middle of Sicily understands that, as her husband dies, and he's right there, died a minute ago. The body's still warm, but he's not there. And even if this woman didn't have any philosophical training, she can say, he's gone. And something is gone, but it's not there. So we are not the body. We are the soul, and we have this sojourn, and all of a sudden we end up in a very precarious condition, coming out of the womb of a family that we take as ours. Like, these people are my blood, so they must be very important to me. But how do you end up there? Why are these people more important than anybody else? How do you develop compassion if you actually feel compassion for just a few? How do you develop mercy and tenderness and kindness to others if you just concentrate on a particular section, whether they are blood-related, race-related, religion-related, ethnicity-related, whatever you think it is going on. It's just a temporary situation. It's just where your vehicle ended up, whatever garage, the vehicle is getting fixed. So don't get so wrapped up in the idea that this is our real life, because our real life hasn't started. It's parallel to this. Real life means spiritual life. It's like to get the soul to revive its original consciousness. And our original consciousness means we are not the masters. That's a very tough step, because we think that pleasure derives out of control. If we can control our situation, then we'll be happy. If I can adjust everything according to my whims, according to my pleasure, and according to my taste, then I'll be fine. And if someone else is controlling that, But this is not so. This is not so. Control is not equivalent to happiness. Service is equivalent to happiness. Only when we actually give without expecting that we get a little taste of what happiness is. And in this process, there is God and the living entities. And because of our nature as souls, that we have this incredible, voracious appetite for being loved. And it's never fulfilled. And we have an unlimited capacity, as insignificant and infinitesimal as we are, to give love. And this can never be received properly, because we can only do this in a direct exchange with God. So Krishna is the reservoir of all love and of all pleasure. And he is the only one who can actually properly reciprocate with us. So the living entity continues to try to derive pleasure through the material senses, through the material objects, through the contact of the senses and the material objects. And it's never enough. It's never satisfying. Even if you find some relief, that's all it is. You're miserable, you stop being miserable. It happens all the time. All the time. All the variety, all the 32 flavors of pleasure that are available in the material world are simply varieties of the same thing, which end up in frustration because it's not for us. Wood, cement, glass, sand, dirt, none of it is pleasant to the soul. The body can think it can find pleasure in other material elements, but it's just temporary. It's like an itch. You know what happens when it itches. You scratch, and then you feel some relief, but then the itching comes back kind of harder. So you have to scratch a little harder, and eventually you end up bleeding. And it's not good. So the situation in the material world is that the more we interact with the material world trying to find solace, the more frustrated we are, until we just completely lose the plot. So in this allegory, now King Prachinavarishad, or Purandana as it's called, or this allegory, is told that there is a five-hooded serpent, which is the energy. Energy is the serpent. The five hoods means the five senses. And Prabhupada explains in the purport that up until the age of 50, one can struggle and try best you can to enjoy the material world. But then the senses become fatigued, and the body becomes fatigued, and it's difficult to get the same pleasure. I mean, I'm a living example of what it is to age ungracefully and still try to find pleasure in the material body and senses. I used to, with my wife, run a vegan cafe at USC in Los Angeles, and I was already in my 60s. I was still working. I was still picking up large pots, 10, 11-gallon pots full of food. They weighed over 100 pounds, and lifting bags of beans and rice and all the other stuff, 50-pound bags, and a commercial food processor that weighs 50 pounds, and just moving stuff around. But eventually, I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't. Just my muscles started tearing. So I had to go through physical therapy, just to do my job. And now what is it when you go to, and in America it's very common that people ask you, how are you doing today? How are you? As if they care. and you tell them, oh, okay, just okay, wait, you're 20 years old, so, okay is probably 4 out of 10 for you, but okay is you're excellent for me. If I get up and I don't have any major pains, that's a good day. If I need to reach for a sweater in the back of my car and I don't throw my back and get down, that's a good thing. That's good exercise right there. So the body deteriorates, and eventually there is no more pleasure. Even the little pleasure that was there is not really available any longer. But the mind refuses to accompany the body, refuses to age. Think, I'm okay, I'm fine, I'm still young, I can still enjoy the material world. And the mind is the master of the senses, so just tries to engage the senses and just enjoy, so-called enjoy. But it doesn't happen much. It's just all in the imagination. Because I heard an example many years ago that there was some kind of old pervert guy going to the movie theater and saw a young girl sitting by herself, and he sat next to her, and the light went off, the movie started, so he made his move, put his hand over her hand, and there was reciprocation, and they were just, holding hands, and he was imagining the whole thing. But the thing that happened was that the girl saw him coming, so she left, and an old gay guy came and sat next to where the girl was. So it was all in his mind. He was imagining that he was with a young, beautiful girl, but it was an old gay guy who took the opportunity. So this is what the mind is like. It will trick you into believing, you can still do it, you can still enjoy it. This world is meant for you. Everybody should be serving you, and you should be the king of it all. And you will live forever, and you will be happy forever. Not true. Death is coming. That's kind of a major problem with this world. That whatever plans you have, even if you didn't have much suffering, if your childhood was a happy one, which is rare, and if you went to school and you enjoyed school, and if you chose a particular career not because of pressure from your parents, but you chose it because you liked it, and you were successfully able to find a job according to your propensities and your studies, which is also rare because most people end up working in a completely different field than the field they study. And then if you get into a relationship with a man or with a woman, and you have a happy family life, which is also very rare, and then you have children that are kind, studious, and obedient, which is extremely rare, and then you don't have to be completely in debt by paying their ridiculous tuition, which is also very rare. All these pictures I'm painting is it's like science fiction, really. It doesn't happen. Most of the time, people are struggling with their own senses and minds, and with other people's senses and minds. So there are 3 types of miseries that are called Atmika, Adibautika, Adidavika, Klesha. Klesha means misery. Atmika comes from the self. I don't have to preach to you about this particular topic. You are by yourself in a desert island filled with coconuts and beautiful sunsets, and your mind will drive you crazy. You're in an ideal paradise, and your mind it is relentless. It will just drive you crazy. What about this? What about that? What if you had this and you lost this? So the mind is always reflecting on what you lost and hankering for what you don't have. Never peaceful what you actually obtain. And I again, I can offer myself as a living witness of that happening. Because before joining Krishna consciousness, I lived in the jungle, in a beautiful place in northern Brazil. I had not a care in the world. I had a hammock and a hut and coconuts and the ocean and a river and a lake and a forest. And no taxes, no people. But still, I was wondering what's the purpose of life? So I was on search mode. It's like when you want to operate your computer and you see the wheel turning, there's nothing you can do. You just have to wait until the wheel stops turning. So the mind is like the wheel that will never stop turning. So the only way to change that is to spiritualize it, to search for spiritual meaning and spiritual explanations instead of material explanations. And then there is adibautika pleasure. Adibautika pleasure means misery is caused by others. And I don't need to get very deeply into this. We know what it is like to have a roommate or a spouse or neighbors or neighboring countries. There's always misery. There's pollution. There's misinterpretation. All this stuff. And there is adidaivica klesha. Daivika comes from the word deva, which means the demigods, or those who are in charge of cosmic affairs, or rain, or not enough rain, or too much rain, too hot, not hot enough, too cold, never cold. It's just always some misery. And by the way, adibautika also includes mosquitoes and flies, and horse flies, and ticks, everywhere. Any snakes, spiders, you can count, how many species. So, and therefore, these miseries are part of our environment. It's not like you can avoid it. You can postpone them. You go to a safe environment, but it's only for a temporary relief. It's like a little scratch, and a big itch. So this is the material world, and there is no way out. As the controller of the material world is Durga. Durga means can't move. So it's like a prison. It's like a Norwegian prison, where there are no fences, no apparent, no razor wire, no guards, no armed guards, but you can't get out. Basically, nature will find you, and the mind goes with you. So that's the problem, that you can't escape your mind. So again, we have to control our mind, because there is no pleasure in letting the mind and the senses run amok. But there is pleasure in having control over our senses. Just like a smoker may derive some pleasure by smoking a cigarette, because it may calm his nerves, etc., etc. But there is a lot more pleasure in being determined and quitting the smoking. That you can say, no thanks, I don't smoke. That is real pleasure. No, I don't have to depend on this, spend part of my budget buying these cancer machines. So there is pleasure in controlling the senses, because once you control your senses, you can actually be peaceful. And there is no happiness to be obtained, this is Krishna's words, without peace. So, and the peace that we find is derived from service, as I began saying. And service begins with the tongue, with the ear, and with the tongue. By chanting the holy name, we actually introduce the spiritual dimension to our life. So we can hear the holy name, and we can chant the holy name, and eventually our heart and all the mixed misgivings in our minds will be blessed and pleased, because that's what they mean. quenching for. And in the beginning it may be a little difficult, or may even taste a little bitter to us, because we are so spoiled. It's like having, the example given is jaundice. Jaundice is a disease of the liver. You can see actually someone with jaundice because they turn yellow, their eyes turn yellow. And this is a disturbance in the bile. And actually, everything you taste is bitter. But eventually it goes away. The more the sweetness comes. So the holy name depends on how contaminated we are, how arduous and how much baggage we have been carrying this journey through the material world, is that we may take a little longer to taste the sweetness, but there is sweetness in the holy name. That's all there is. And this will be the panacea to cure all those misgivings, all this misery, all this existential drama and trauma that we suffer from. They are easily put to the side. They actually become insignificant. Just like if you're inside this building, you can see the different rooms, and there's so much to see, and it seems so big. But if you're flying above, you can hardly see the building. So when you chant, you actually take off from the material platform, and you can see that all of your material problems are kind of very small and insignificant and easy to cross. So I encourage everybody to continue, to start or to continue doing this process of Harinam Sankirtan, chanting the holy name, to restore our original identity, which is simply waiting for us to get our stuff together. So I think that will be enough for today. If you have any questions or comments, now is a good time to present them. Even if they're not related. Anyone online? Or here? Please, do you have anything to add or subtract? Thank you. Gentlemen, am I adding anything? Yep.
When we present like you present the situation, the real situation in the material world, that actually expresses suffering, we see two types of reactions. Some devotees people are inspired, but sometimes the devotees they say, well, it's very depressing, why do we have to do well in it?
Why not be positive always?
Right, so what do you tell, especially in the second type of reaction?
So Pandava Prabhu here presents the idea that when we hear about the situation, true to life situation that I presented, and maybe a little bit strong or depressing to some. Some may be enthused by hearing about this thing, and say, yeah, I have to take care of my spiritual life. And others may say, man, you're a party pooper. You just ruined my idea of the future for myself. I have nothing to look forward to. So how can we switch, and make everybody happy? You can't. We are individuals. Some people will actually see the cup half full, and some will see the cup half empty. So all you can do is point in the right direction. They say you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. So people speak from their own experience. Some people just want to hear certain things. They just want to hear positive reinforcement. They are not very comfortable with criticism or with what they call negativity, which is simply an objective description of the world that we live in. For example, next week I was asked to address the devotees near Kiev in Ukraine. They are, as we know, unless you've been living under a rock, they've been having trouble because this mad dictator leader from Russia decided to invade the country and make everybody miserable. So I was pondering about this same issue. How am I going to address it? Am I going to try to be positive, look at the good, look at the bright side, and now you have a chance to really depend on the holy name because your circumstances are so. Would they appreciate my saying that? You're in a perfect situation. I wish I was in your situation because I could also chant seriously and depend on the holy name instead of trying to depend on my skills and my age and my looks and my knowledge and all this stuff. Or should I just give him an inventory? Okay, you really go to the bottom of the barrel. Now you're really suffering, and you have to see the material. I don't know how to. It's difficult. Depends on the audience, but there's always people who want to hear flattery and fairy tales. It is. There are people who don't want to hear negative things. Like, for example, when in America, if you speak about death, that is like basically describing your going to the bathroom while you're having family dinner. That is not a good thing. That just nobody would appreciate that you talk about what you do in the bathroom while you're having dinner. So nobody in America, or hardly anybody, appreciates talking about death because it's an interruption to their plans. Because we're going to be a family forever. We're going to live together and be happy. We have to be happy because that's it. That's the goal of life, to be happy in your family life. And let's not talk about what comes after that. So I find it very difficult. It's like when there is a Sunday program, right? And the temple is about 99% devotees who have been practicing Krishna consciousness for a number of years. And then there is a guest who comes for the first time. And then the speaker speaks to the guest. So gives a basic introduction, Krishna consciousness 101. Maybe to the delight of the one guest, but the other 99 people are just shaking their head and hoping for the lecture to be short. So you have to always choose. You may choose your audience in a very pinpointed, particular way, but you should know that whatever you say, especially if it is about spiritual life, which includes what the material world is like, there's going to be a polarization. And some people are going to be happy, and some people are going to be very disturbed by it. There was one time we were invited. I was in Santiago, Chile, and the temple devotees were invited to go to a symposium on harmony, presented by, I can't remember what society was. Anyway, it was in a beautiful spa retreat where people practice yoga and meditation and different groups, personalists, impersonalists, and crystal collectors, and New Age, and everybody was there. Every region of the spectrum was actually represented. And it was very long. It was 300 people, and they all had 10 minutes to make a presentation. And the topic was harmony. And we were supposed to do a presentation for 10 minutes, and then a kirtan for 5 minutes. And then, so the temple president, I was sitting right next to him, and we were about seven devotees. he was taking notes as every speaker went on to speak about peace and harmony and butterflies and unicorns and rainbows and sunsets and just it was literally the cure for insomnia right there. And he was taking notes and he kept taking notes. And I said, are you really doing this? Are you really going to be like one of them? You have to deliver the truth, whether they like it or not. It's your duty. He said, no, but they will never like us that way. I said, we are not here to be liked. We are here to present the truth. So, the thing went on, I think it was 2 hours into it, and we just heard one after another, and just universal kindness, and this and that. It was just basically filling up the space with blubber, I couldn't take it anymore. So it was his turn. So he had so many notes, I don't know, he didn't know where to start. But he went up to the podium, and I went to the very back of the hall, and I grabbed a big piece of paper about this big, and I drew an axe into the paper. And as he started saying, we want peace and harmony and beauty, and he was just going on like that, and I just lifted it. And nobody could see me except for him, because he was the only one facing the audience. So he saw the axe, and it was very clear. And I wasn't very good at drawing, but he couldn't misinterpret what I had drawn. And he got stunned. So he stopped speaking, and he just kept looking at the axe. And so he was making the decision at that point. I could see, am I going to continue with this line, or am I going to just deliver? And then he shrugged his shoulders and he just delivered, to my delight. And he said, all this stuff is nonsense. We are all going to get old and die, and our spiritual life is more essential than any of these words. They don't have any meaning because they are not backed by actions. And, he went on and on. And there was, after 9 minutes of speaking, with a total 10, some red light will flash to tell people, okay, time to wrap it up. And go, oh, they flashed that light for a long time. There was no way that he was going to stop now, that he was totally into it. So he went for about 20 minutes or so. And then I just gathered the devotees, and we just went on stage and did a rousing kirtan for another 20 minutes. While he was speaking, the reaction that he got from the audience was quite unimaginable. Some people were saying, yeah, finally! And some people saying, down with them, forget it, this is horrible, this is depressing. So, there was a complete polarization. There was, I don't know if it was half of the audience, 1/3, 1/10%, whatever, but they were totally against, and some were in favor. And when we finished the kirtan, we sat down, and I just wanted to see what was the reaction, what happened. So from then on, every person who spoke, we didn't stay too long, we stayed for about 5 more speakers. And every person who spoke said, as the brothers from the Hare Krishna movement said, and they will actually just get to the point, they didn't use fluff anymore about this harmony and peace and unicorns and stuff. So eventually, somewhat satisfied or resigned to what we have done, we just got up and left. And he told me on the way out, they're never going to call us back. None of these people are going to ever want to see us again. And he was wrong, because we started getting messages from lots of people. Oh, can you come and speak to our place? Can you come and show this? Can you do kirtan? Etc., etc. So it is our duty to tell the truth. Not our truth, but as the Bhakti tradition explained, and in our own words, in our own inimitable style, but with kindness and concern, not just, I'm telling you what to do, and meanwhile I do whatever I want. And if people like it or not, we can take it personally and say, oh, it's my fault that this person didn't like what I said, because of my delivery. It's not because of the message, it's because of the messenger. So we should work on that. But otherwise, our duty is to tell things as they are. And if people like them or not, that's according to their own degree of spiritual advancement. How far along are they in the journey? So we just try to help them, but so they can do it. If someone is drowning and you offer, you to throw a rope from a boat and they don't want to grab it, what can you do? You're going to hit him with an oar in the head and just drag him into the boat? And some people may do that. It's not our duty to do this. So there's always going to be detractors and admirers. We just deal with those who like what we have and share it. And if the rest of the world think you're crazy and you have nothing to offer, it's their prerogative. We're individual souls and we have a small, tiny amount of free will and can be manifested in this rejection. Like I think it may have happened to all of us that when we heard about Hare Krishna, the Hare Krishna movement for the first time, we thought, no, those guys are weird. They're weird. Right? When I saw them in the subway, selling incense and books and stuff like that, I walked way on the outskirts. I didn't want them to come near. I didn't know what they had. I was kind of not curious enough. So there had to be a bit of purification associated until I could understand a little bit. All right, that was a long way around the answer. I hope I answered a little bit. Anything else? Oh, the sound quality was bad. I'm sorry. I don't know where the microphone is by the computer. It should have been here, the little microphone. Anyway, too late now. Thank you. All goes to Srila Prabhupada, Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam. Sorry about the sound. I should have known that there was a microphone here. On the other hand, you haven't missed anything.